I'm going to welcome back to the stage Lori. Now she's going to take a different helm, and she's going to talk to us about the initiative that the organization that she's part of, is actually doing in healthcare.
Dr. Erica Walker, epidemiologist and professor of public health at Brown University, wanted to understand the different ways that exposure to noise affected people's health and sense of well-being. She thought that research on this topic would help make people in her hometown healthier. We at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation agreed, and so we made a grant to the community noise lab Erica founded to create a noise map of Jackson, Mississippi. Now, when Erica and her team got to Jackson, they asked the community for input on their study, and the community members told her that they agreed that noise pollution was an important environmental justice, health justice issue, but that they had more urgent challenges. Erica listened to the community members as they told her their health priorities. And then, instead of telling them she was sorry she was funded to do a study about noise, she called her funder and let us know there was a change of plans. And then she and her team got right to work creating a different kind of map, one that responded to the needs of the community, documenting where used tires and trash were being illegally dumped in Jackson neighborhoods. Erica calls this kind of research, heading straight to the issues that are causing the most harm, storm-chasing science. And she's doing it side by side with high school students from the historically Black Pineywood School and community college students, giving them the skills to advocate for themselves and their communities. Something similar is happening in Oakland, California. Lil Milagro Henriquez, advocate, educator, and founder of the Mycelium Youth Network, wanted to understand whether learning about climate change was making the young people in her city more anxious or less anxious. She knew that the people best able to answer this question were the young people themselves. And so she and her team brought together a group of Oakland area teenagers to design the surveys, to create the evaluation methods, to actually do the research as paid interns. Lil calls these teenage researchers data warriors. And the research that we're doing together, research justice, leveling the knowledge production playing field. Now, I've been in and around research for 25 years. This is exciting stuff. Lil and Erica are showing us the future of research. A future that involves more voices of more people, like community members and young people, and enhances their research skills. A future that values more ways of knowing, like cultural, spiritual, and experiential. A future that is guided by the needs of the community, not just the healthcare institution and the biomedical corporation and the health funders' research agenda. A future where every aspect of research is done through the lenses of equity and justice, from how the data is collected and measured, to who collects the data, how it's evaluated, and what's left behind in the community. Now, getting to this future will not be easy. There are strong beliefs about what is the right way to do research and what is the rigorous way, and we've built our whole system with incentives to protect the status quo. Erica has been told that her research isn't publishable, and Lil is acutely aware that the research and evaluation that these data warriors are doing will need some academic engagement in order to be taken seriously. But it's not people like Lil and Erica who need to change. It's the system that needs to change. Now, there are amazing researchers and scientists who are making incredible discoveries and unlocking innovation and insights all the time. But the system just doesn't work for everyone. Not for the people in Jackson who are concerned with the problem of illegal dumping, and not for the young people in Oakland whose words, which describe their situation perfectly, would never be collected on a usual survey. Research, as it's currently conducted, leaves a lot of people out of the room and a lot of approaches off the table. It locks away access to knowledge behind fees and firewalls. And like many systems, it places more value on the lives of some than others. The system needs to change. And this is where you all come in. We need your bright ideas and also your I wonder if hunches to try to figure out how we can dismantle structural racism and reorient the research system towards equity. Because change is possible. People created the system, and people can change it. And we at the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation are committed to taking bold leaps to try to help make that happen. But it is people like Lil and Erica who will show us the way. Which is why I am so excited to welcome Lil and Erica to the stage for a conversation that I'm sure is going to inspire all of us to chart new paths forward in research. Welcome, Lil and Erica. Lil Milagro Henriquez, who is the founder and executive director of Mycelium Youth Network, and Dr. Erica Walker, who is an epidemiologist and assistant professor of public health at Brown University. So let's get right into it. The audience heard a bit about your work from me, but let's talk a little bit more. Lil, we'll start with your work at the Mycelium Youth Network. Can you talk about research justice and also what it means to, in your words, level the research field?
Yeah, so thank you. Kualitonali nawinoteka inkaklali atik paksin atik isaya inkaklali kutsatlan kochtitantli pipil nawat. So thank you, everybody. I'm really honored to be here and feeling a lot of gratitude for all of the amazing conversations that have already happened, and also caught up in that anxiety, or in that gratitude is a lot of anxiety for the more than 5.9 actually million people that are evacuating Florida right now as we speak because of Hurricane Milton. And so in thinking about how what Hurricane Milton is signifying, that we're all in uncharted territories as we're moving forward around our climate crisis. And so when I think about something like research justice, I always frame it within the lens of like what we know is actually coming, what we can't predict is coming in terms of climate, and who do we need to be able to support to be able to live their best lives? Because research justice for me really feels like how are we using research, using our educational system to support people to live their best lives now and in the future? And then thinking about how currently, like what we're experiencing right now is actually not having the research to be able to support young people to live their best lives now and in the future because of climate change. And so part of the work that Mycelium is doing is trying to do that reconstruction and reframing of the research field by really focusing in on climate adaptation and mitigation education, radical imagination, and gaming, which I'll talk about in a little bit, and also using scientific data and youth-centered research to try to transform conversations. And so the way that we do that at Mycelium and what we're trying to do is really focusing a lot around youth leadership development and thinking about how we can actually use climate education and youth-centered research to be able to transform the current reality that young people are experiencing, which is incredibly high levels of climate anxiety, of climate doomism. Studies have shown 76% of young people across the world feel the future is frightening, and really honing in on the fact that like our current systems are failing young people, not necessarily they're failing young people not necessarily because, you know, they feel like anxious and, you know, climate is real, but because actually we're not talking to young people about it, and we're not centering young people as the solutions to how we should think about climate change. And so part of what we've discovered through the grant with Robert Wood Johnson is actually the more you talk to young people about climate change and what they can do to prepare and adapt for it, and the more you support them with cutting edge research, and the more you put them in the seat of the people that then get to decide what the research or what the work looks like, you actually reduce the level of climate anxiety that young people experience, and then all they see for the future, or partly what they see for the future, a big part of what we'll say they see for the future is actually possibility, and that is actually incredible. And so our Data Warriors program is a paid youth internship where youth are actually in the center and are driving our evaluation of our programming, which is climate adaptation and mitigation programming, and we say to them, like, what do you think is important? What does success look like for you in this moment? What do you need from an educational system to support you right now in your current educational system, but also in future, like workforce development, and also in imagination, and what do you want to build and imagine in the world?
Great. Erica, let's talk about storm chasing science, and what you've said, you've described this as getting right to the eye of the storm. Can you tell us how you came to that perspective and how it affects how you think about the future of research?
Yeah, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Nice to meet you all. I came up with storm chasing science during COVID. And so we directed all of our resources towards getting people vaccinated, getting people shots. And I just kind of felt like in my home state of Mississippi, that wasn't necessarily the right way to go. So in Jackson at the same time COVID was happening, there was a huge water crisis. I mean, people were literally turning on their water, brown water was coming out. And so for us to tell them to prioritize getting vaccinated in comparison to getting clean water, I felt was really crazy. And at the same time, I was thinking about doing work in my home state of Mississippi, and I was like, hey, let's go do noise. And so we had COVID, I wanted to do my noise research, and we had this water crisis. So in that process of trying to understand what were the community needs, the true community needs, I realized that I had to adapt my strategies to not my own personal research interests, not dictates from public health researchers, like public health people telling people to get vaccinated, but what was actually happening in the communities. And so for me, I knew that I wasn't going to prioritize vaccinations, I wasn't going to prioritize any noise, I was going to prioritize the water crisis. So for me, storm chasing science is prioritizing communities that have the greatest needs. So for me, it's always making sure that I am working with communities, working for communities, and addressing the things that matters to them the most, even if that is in direct contradiction to what everyone else is saying.
Great. So the theme of this conference is uncharted territory. Can you talk a little bit, both of you, about what that means for you and what that means for your work?
Yeah, so as a mom of two kids, I have a 8-year-old and a 12-year-old who's about to next week go to their 7th grade middle school dance, which hurts my heart a little bit. I think a lot about critical hope when it comes to uncharted territories, because there's a lot that we don't know and that we can't prepare for directly. And it becomes an intentional choice every day, both for myself personally, but also the work that we do at Mycelium Youth Network, to lean into hope and to lean into critical hope and to let go of despair when we're thinking about it, or to do our best to fight despair. Some days it works, some days it doesn't. And I think about the quote by the writer Raymond Williams, who said, to be truly radical is to make hope possible rather than despair convincing. And especially when it comes to youth and climate change work, that's like one of the quotes that really pushes me out of bed every single morning. And so when I think about what that looks like in terms of uncharted territories, it's like our organization as a youth-serving organization that directly works to prepare young people for climate change, like all of our work is forward-facing. We're consistently trying to bring in the best of scientific data and figure out how do we make this accessible and viable and translatable to the young people that we're serving. And so, we do things like in our Climate Resilient Schools program, we're looking at supporting youth in the Bay Area through climate adaptation and mitigation education. What are the issues that are going to affect them? How do they train directly in their homes and communities, something that they can immediately take with them? Our Youth Leadership Council program is looking at supporting youth to create their schools as resilient hubs. So saying, again, here's what we know is going to happen. How do we create our schools to be able to better identify with that? I talked about our Data Warriors program, which is a paid youth internship and is the evaluative arm of all of the program that we're running. And then we also have the piece around, for us, gaming and the places of possibility. One of the things we often say at Mycelium is, or especially in our Gaming for Justice program, is if youth can't imagine the world they want to see, then how are they supposed to build it? And so thinking about games and the role of games and play, and I know gamers often get a bad rap. There's obviously the stereotype of living in your mom's basement, playing video games, and that was me when I was younger. But then also I think that there's the piece around like what games actually allow us to do is they put me when I'm playing a game in the role of a change maker and as somebody that can fundamentally transform a given gaming world, right? And how important that is right now in this moment in time. And multiple studies have shown, like Yale researchers found very, very recently that actually like climate gamers are more likely to take action on climate change than the general public. And they actually want more games that are reflective of climate reality so that they can play through it. And there's obviously a lot of studies that have also shown that games like Dungeons and Dragons or tabletop role-playing games as they're called have a lot of direct positive impact on people's like personal lives, on their social interactions, on their skills, problem solving. And so what we do as part of our Gaming for Justice program at Mycelium, which is for us, uncharted territory in terms of how are we imagining a possible future that doesn't feel so scary, because then the second it feels scary and you feel anxious about it, it's really, really hard to take action, is that we'll take moments in environmental or climate history or futures and we'll put that into a Dungeons and Dragons game that youth then play through. And they're putting them in the place again of like leaders, of change makers, and they're able to start envisioning solutions to challenges that in the real world feel really hard to deal with or feel difficult or can feel paralyzing. And so it allows us to be able to like tap into that place of like radical potential. And we often say like we're trying to eliminate climate doomism like one throw of the dice at a time.
Right, and you're going to give folks in the audience an opportunity to do that tomorrow morning if you pick that breakout session. So how about you, Erica? What does the theme of uncharted territory mean to you and to your work?
Yeah, well, storm chasing science by definition is going to the heart of the storm. So, there's the risk of everything that's associated with moving towards the heart of the storm. But I think I have a love-hate relationship with academia. I think I've shared that in a lot of my writings. I love academia for the things that it gives me. Like it gives me resources to go out and answer the questions I'm interested in, to work with communities. It also gives you some currency. I don't know if it's deserved or not, but you get some buy-in because, I'm at an institution. People assume that you know what you're talking about. But there's a lot about academia that I just want to tear down. Like I just feel like tenure. When I remember when I was on the job market and I was interviewing, and I do a lot of community-facing work, and the guy was like, "Well, how are we going to tenure a person like you?" And I'm like, "Well, maybe you don't. Like, maybe that's not the point." So I want to challenge some of the structure in academia. Like we prioritize the buzzwords. I don't mean to talk bad about climate change. But we prioritize the buzzwords. We only fund or only seek out funding for the buzzwords. A lot of the things that I study, a lot of the things that our community needs are not sexy enough to be funded. We have really weird infrastructure for what scholarship, like if it's a paper behind a paywall, that's what's important. And we outsource our heart. Like we usually don't have the connections with the community, so we end up outsourcing that connection that we don't have. So for me, I find all of that very disgusting. So I want to challenge that. And I always say that, I also think that we as public health researchers, we want to tell people what to do. And I feel like my job as a public health researcher is to provide you with a basket of goods and allow you the decision to choose what you want out of those goods. And so with my work, I want to make sure that in that basket you can pull out, if you want to or not, good health and well-being. So I think my job in life is to challenge those things that I think need to be changed, change them, and move on. So a lot of my work, I work with non-traditional research partners. A lot of community colleges do the bulk of the work. They have their own stations where they're monitoring the climate in their community. So for me, I eventually want to, I think one of the things about academia too is that we kind of work in a monopoly. We get all the money, we have all the resources. So we don't really have any competition. We don't know if we're at our best. And our best is mostly defined by our degrees in our publications, but we don't know that we're at our best. So for me, I feel like working with these community colleges, working with these high school students, I want them to one day, very soon, hopefully, to be my competition. So I either want to lose out to them or I want them to push me to be better, because I don't think that I'm at my best just because of where I am and the degrees that I have. So I feel like for me, that uncharted territory is tearing down the system that's giving me paychecks each month and hoping to live to see another day.
Great. Okay, so in the time we have left, I'm going to do some rapid fire questions. I'm going to start with you, Erica, first. So what's one solution that you think could help us get to the future of research that you envision? And this might be something that you're doing, it may be something that you want to try, or maybe it's something that you want somebody else to try.
I really want everyone to challenge academic research. I really want you to make us vouch for what we say. Like we work in a very sterile environment. You know, we get lots of grant money, we're at these institutions, but I hate to say this, but we half-ass a lot. And so I want us to be challenged, and I want you to make us work on the things that are important to you. I want you to tell us what we need to do and not us telling you what you need to do. So I would have loved for, us to have had the insight that like, wow, we can't tell everybody to prioritize vaccines because a community has unclean water, but why didn't we know that that community had unclean water? So I really think that people need to stop being blinded by what academia is and hold our feet to the fire and make us really work for everything that we have.
How about you, Lil? What's a solution you want to try or want someone else to try?
Yeah, I think the solution I'd like folks to try in the audience or in other spaces is like we have a tendency in spaces, and I'll talk about climate change, climate adaptation spaces, to just talk to other adults, to figure out like how can we figure out this challenge for not even for youth, how do we figure out this like challenge of climate change? And young people are often like brought in either as like inspirational moments and then rapidly moved off the stage, or they're actually completely not brought in at all. And so we're not actually going to solve, and I also sit in some of the like biggest spaces in the country around like climate adaptation and mitigation, and hardly anybody talks about young people at all. And so if we're thinking of even something like infrastructure or workforce development, or are we prepared for what's happening? Like thinking about all of the, the damage right now that Hurricane Milton is going to cause even today, but other climate related disasters, like our young people are not equipped to be able to respond to any of them because we're training them in a way that makes it seem like our current system is going to continue to exist, and it's not going to exist. Like it's actually rapidly disappearing in terms of the kinds of damage that we're looking at, in terms of the intensity of storms or wildfires. I live in California. And so how do we center youth solutions and youth-led solutions, and how do we design a system that is actually for young people and the world that they're gonna inherit, and to actually be able to prepare them for that world and to feel confident in being able to take it on. And so, and oftentimes like that's not what's even funded, even in climate spaces, like less than 1% of things are less than 0.76 is the amount of funding that goes to youth-led climate initiatives across the country, which is wild, because it is actually young people themselves who are going to be dealing with the effects across socioeconomic lines, racial lines, who are going to be dealing with the effects of climate change, and they're not prepared. And so what does it mean to be able to bring in and center youth, again, not as an add-on or as like a check the box or I need to be inspired, but in an actual way to be able to support them with institutional and infrastructural power. And so that's my call to everybody, no matter what fields you're working in.
All right, as we wrap up, is there anything else that you would want the audience to know, or is there a question that you want to leave them with? Erica, I'll start with you.
I think just like I say, hold our feet to the fire, make us work on things that are important. And I also encourage you to like listen to what's going on in your communities, and even if it goes against the current, like work on those issues, even if they're not sexy, even if they're not fundable, even if people think you're crazy, work on those issues, because I'm in public health. The public is very important to me. The public is why I do what I do. So just work on the problems that matter, even if they're not the problems that are sexy. If it's just water quality in a small town that had industry dry up many years ago and no one knows about it, no one cares about it because everyone's trying to plant trees, make some noise for that community, because I just stand up for the issues that aren't popular.
Erica, I've heard you say it's public health, not published health.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the strategy by which, like I said, I have a love-hate relationship with academia, the way that I'm promoted and told that I'm doing a good job is the metrics are very off. They're very not related to community. And I feel like we're rewarded for not having a connection to the community. And for public health, that just seems so disgusting. I'm so disgusted by that.
How about you? What's one thing you want to leave the audience with, or a question for them?
Yeah, I think the question I want to leave the audience with is we all know, or hopefully we all know, that we're going into uncharted territory when it comes to the issue of climate change and climate disasters. And we need each other now more than we ever have before. And at the same time, we need to fund the kind of solutions, and we need to be running the kinds of solutions and creating the kinds of solutions that are not designed from the very system that created our issues and the problem, which is, settler colonialism, capitalism. We need to be able to lean into the places that make us really uncomfortable, because those are the places where we're going to have the most solutions. And especially when we're thinking about the work that we need to start doing with young people and the ways we need to start preparing and activating young people across the country. Like a previous speaker said, the greatest movements in recent history have been started by youth activism and youth saying, no, we're not going to allow this to happen. And so my question to the audience is how are you creating or building or funding organizations or peoples or communities that are thinking about the kind of radical solutions that we are needing right now? Or in the way of my community is something we say in my traditions is how are you being a good ancestor? So
great. So there's lots to think about, and please do think about this, because these women and their teams and the people they're working with are amazing, but we don't have all the solutions, and we're really hoping that we'll start some conversations that will come up with some new things for all of us to try. Hope that folks will join Lil and her team. Do you want to just give a brief commercial for your session tomorrow morning?
So tomorrow at 9:30 in the Welcome Pavilion, we're going to be playing we're going to be doing Gaming for Justice. So we're going to be playing an environmental justice Dungeons and Dragons game, which we're super excited about. So it'll be this moment. I think about The Matrix, which I was sad to see in terms of sci-fi fantasy movies that, we're talking about the future earlier, but it's going to be this Matrix moment where we're asking you to dive into the illusion, into play, to be able to figure out what kind of world you want to build with a given challenge. And I'm really excited to be doing that with Marcy and with our other storyteller tomorrow. So we hope you join us.
Okay, great.
No experience needed.
Thank you both. Thanks everyone for your attention.